Yesterday, the Mariners made their most interesting minor league signing of the winter. We'll talk about it coming up. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Friday, January 23rd, 2026. You're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. My name is Ty Gonzalez, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Colby Patnode. We're two lifelong Mariners fans who've been covering the team for over half a decade. And today we're going to talk about the Mariners signing former Rangers pitcher Dane Dunning to a minor league contract. We'll tell you why that's interesting, and we'll get into your Mariners trade ideas for Fanfiction Friday. But let's start here with Dane Dunning. Colby, I actually have some news to talk about, kind of. It's a minor league signing, but this is a guy that, only 2 years ago in 2023 was a 2-win pitcher for the Rangers. He got moved to the bullpen this past year, didn't go particularly well for him. He averaged a little over a strikeout per inning, which is nice. The walks per nine, not that bad, 305, but the ERA is 6.97, 507 FIP. He was worth negative 0.1 F4. But the Mariners taking a shot on a former highly regarded prospect who has some, major league success under his belt and a lot of major league seasoning at the very least under his belt.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a minor league deal. There's no such thing as a bad minor league deal unless there's off-field issues, which there doesn't appear to be here. So, yeah, it's interesting. We'll see how the Mariners want to use him. Do they keep him in the bullpen? Do they stretch him back out for rotation depth? But that's ultimately what he is. He's depth. He's a lottery ticket that you're taking a shot on. There's really not a ton to get super excited about. At his best, he throws 91, 92 with good control and command, but he has to nibble on the edges because if he's in the middle of the plate, he's going to get torched. The stuff isn't all that good. It's honestly not too dissimilar from Emerson Hancock. It's just, he's actually been a 2-win pitcher before, which Emerson Hancock can't do. So, it is that. Plus, Hancock's probably in the bullpen. I don't think they're going to stretch him back out. So you kind of had to replace that 6th or 7th starter. It's Dunning is fine. And you have Dobnak too. But both of those guys have experience both in the bullpen and in the rotation. So there's some flexibility there. Dunning, it's a minor league deal, so he doesn't have to make the team out of spring training. I assume there's an opt-out like there are with pretty much all minor league deals, though. So if another team wants him at the end of spring, he'll head off. If not, then he'll head to Tacoma and be some valuable org depth there. So it's an interesting idea. I mean, again, do they move him to the bullpen? Maybe, but if he's only throwing 91, 92 and he's not getting a ton of swing and miss, I mean, that's a very low floor. So I think, or a very low ceiling, I should say. So I think that they probably stretch him out. They probably keep him ready to jump in and throw some innings at the big league level if needed, knowing that they could always just throw him back in the bullpen, that there's not really a long transition that needs to take place from going from the rotation to the bullpen as opposed to the other way, which takes a couple weeks, if not months. So yeah, I think it's a nice signing. It gives the Mariners some rotation depth. It also gives them some bullpen depth. And I think ultimately if Dunning is a Mariner at some point in 2026, it's much the way that Casey Lawrence has been a Mariner over the last couple of years, where it's just like, we need a spot start. We need somebody who can cover 4 or 5 innings, call up Dunning, and then we'll send him back down. And we'll see if he can get through waivers and, bounce back and forth like that. So I don't think he's a real candidate to make the opening day roster or anything like that. But I do think that it's a nice little depth add, and then we'll see what the Mariners can do. He does throw from that arm angle sweet spot, between 30 and 40 degrees. And he does get really good extension down off the mound. So typically good extension, low arm slot at T-Mobile Park, usually a pretty good recipe. He's also a sinker guy, which we know the Mariners love. Cutter is probably his best pitch. But again, none of these pitches that he also has like 6 or 7 offerings that he'll throw at you, but none of them are particularly good. So, again, he's just kind of a kitchen sink guy. He nibbles on the corners. He'll walk guys rather than give into them and throw a pitch down the middle of the plate. High home run rates, pretty good ground ball rates though. So he's just kind of a number 5, number 6 type of starter.
Yeah. But this is the type of minor league signing you were talking about on Wednesday. It's the type of minor league signing that we clamor for. It's something that raises the floor a little bit, right? You know, we learned this over the course of last year. When guys go down, you start to run out of options pretty quick. So adding Dunning to Logan Evans, Cole Wilcox, Randy Dobnak, like you said, Emerson Hancock's probably a reliever now in the Mariners' eyes, full time. So he's probably not in the mix there. But those four guys, obviously, if any of your starters go down, it's a bad situation. But with someone like Dunning, with someone like Dobnak, who have some major league success in their history, and then you got a couple of guys who are kind of interesting, like Logan Evans and Cole Wilcox, feel all right about that depth. Look, you're not going to be able to go out and sign a legitimate major league starter to just sit in AAA. Like, you have to take shots like this, and Dunning is a very interesting shot to take here. And if anyone could get him back on the right track, it's probably the Mariners.
Yeah, he was with not Driveline, but he was with one of the other groups like that, and they got his velocity back up a little bit. And again, he tunnels well with all of his pitches. The K rates aren't nothing, like they're not good, but like they're fine. He just his ceiling is he's a number 5 starter, which is fine. You need a couple of those guys, and if he happens to leave, in June or July or whatever, you call him up and then you DFA him because he doesn't have options and he gets claimed. At that point, as things stand right now, you're probably hoping Senja is ready to go and take that leap. Kate Anderson might be ready to go to take that leap. So, yeah, you need these guys. And also, not a bad thing to have these guys around in camp where they're going to get a lot of opportunities. A lot of Mariners headed off to the WBC. So they'll get some good opportunities there. And also they'll be around some of the younger guys. And Dunning is, Dunning and Dobnak, they've been around, they understand the game, and they know how to pitch when they don't have, amazing stuff. And I think that's valuable to have in camp as well. So again, there's no risk to this. It's all, I would say it's all upside, but there's not a lot of upside in Dane Dunning. But yeah, there's no risk there's no risk in doing this. And it's the kind of, plays that you should make. And it's a play the Mariners have made, twice now, with Dobnak very early on and Dunning here recently. And then they also have some upside AAA depth and like the Cole Wilcox types.
All right, well, it is Fanfiction Friday. We're going to get into some of your trades in just a moment. But first, a reminder, this episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by TurboTax and the Space Needle. Look, y'all, tax season doesn't have to take over your life, all right? Because this year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150, all in if a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year. All you have to do is file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Pint to Pie at the Space Needle is the perfect pregame or pre-funk spot before hitting Climate Pledge Arena. After 4 p.m., the Space Needle's Pint to Pie gives you the whole package. Entry, a sweeter savory tip-top pie, and a pint of beer, wine, or non-alcoholic drink, all for just $35 per person. Minimum purchase of 2 required. Pint to Pie is your launch pad to tonight's cracking game at the CPA. So why not enjoy a little space and a great view while pre-gaming with your favorite cocktail rather than trying to cram into a crowded sports bar? Toast the home team, then roll into Climate Pledge with the best pregame story in all of Seattle. Whether it's date night, friend night, or you're just here for the deal of it all, come take your place on the horizon for only $35 per person. Limited time offer, 21 plus only, ID required. Get tickets at spaceneedle.com. Minimum 2 required. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making us your first listen for all things Mariners. And also thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. You already live your team every day. Now take it up a level and go ad free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Mariners with no interruptions, members only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 a year. Go to lockedonmariners.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to learn more. So we got the Dane Dunning news out of the way. Now let's kick off Fanfiction Friday. Bryce has a deal here with the Mets. It's just a 1-for-1 Luke Raley for Ronnie Mauricio. I guess my note on this is Raley is going to play, a majority of the games for you, whereas Mauricio is what immediately a Leo Rivas replacement.
Probably.
Like Raley right now is your right fielder against righties.
Yeah. Or DH if for some reason you're desperate to stick Dom Canzone in the outfield like a lot of people seem to be. Mauricio, got an option left. That's nice. Obviously he's an infielder, which is nice. Not much of a track record of success though. I just kind of feel, I look at this and I go, is there enough here to make this swap? I don't think there is. I don't trust Mauricio's bat enough to make this swap because, like you said, Raley is an everyday player for me, or mostly part-time, but on the positive side.
He's a strong side platoon.
Yes.
You're going to see right-handed pitchers 70% of the time.
There's a term that I'll tell you about later that I was thinking of, but I didn't want to use. So, cool. Yeah, he is that guy. And right now, Mauricio, probably not that guy. So it's just one of those things where Mauricio had a little bit more of a track record, maybe, because I don't mind trading Luke Raley for an infielder. It's just, can I get something that I don't really have? And Mauricio to me just feels too much like Leo Rivas. And I think I'd rather have Raley in my lineup than Rivas as kind of the everyday, well, not every day, but like the full-time utility guy. So we'll see how it goes.
That's the other thing too, right? It's like, all right, so Mauricio is the Rivas replacement, but also is he even better than Leo Rivas?
Maybe.
I think he has higher upside than Rivas, but sure. I mean, the 2025 numbers would say,
yes.
the 2025 numbers would say that Leo Rivas was a better player than Ronnie Mauricio. So,
right. Again, this is kind of one of those trades that, like, if it happened, would I be upset? No, because I can understand like the logic behind it. But would I be super pumped about it? No, I don't think so. I'm not a huge Mauricio guy. I think it's
just Raley's just way more important to your ball club right now than Mauricio would be.
Yeah.
Like eventually Mauricio could be important, but right off the rip, like that's you're addressing a less important spot on your roster with a greater with a more important part of your roster. So it's just
also
that's where I get lost.
Yeah. Also, not for nothing, but if you're the Mets, Mauricio has an option left. Like, don't you value that flexibility of being able to move him around and move him up and down more than you would having Luke Raley on your team? Because you don't really need Luke. The Mets lineup is kind of a jumble right now. But I think, just me personally, I think the Mets would rather have the versatility of a guy with an option who can play multiple infield spots. I think they'd rather have that than, Luke Raley sometimes being in their lineup. So I'm not sure if this trade works for both teams. It's interesting though. I don't mind the idea of Raley for an infielder if you can find the right one. But, right now, are they going to give Raley at bats over Brett Beatty? Because that's kind of what they'd have to do. I don't see it.
Yeah. So I'm going to go 35 on this one.
I'll go 40, 45. Yeah. I think it's a little better than that.
Next trade here from O-line Coach C, Durangelo Sanger, Ben Williamson, and Troy Taylor. Can't be Samad anymore because Samad just elected free agency for CJ Abrams.
Abrams, we've talked about him a little bit. Yeah. He's not bad. He just doesn't do anything like exceptionally well. He's just never had an on-base percentage above 315. He's never had an OPS at 750 or higher. He doesn't walk like at all. He's not interested in walking. And, kind of despite that, the strikeouts, they're not terrible. They're above average, but they're not great. They're not plus at avoiding strikeouts. He chases too much. He doesn't hit the ball all that hard. He's a terrible defender at shortstop. So the Mariners would be acquiring him to move him to second base because he'd actually be one of the few players that would probably be a downgrade to JP Crawford defensively. But he's 25 and he's got a couple of 20, 30 seasons under his belt. Again, he's fine. I think the home run stolen base totals kind of, make people think he is something that he's not. But when you look at the numbers, he's a slightly above average hitter. If you just look at batting average, he is a below average, on base guy, barely, pretty close to league average on base. And he's got some pop, but he doesn't really have a defensive home right now because he can't play shortstop for a decent team. And, he can't really, we don't know if he's going to be good at second. So I don't know how much Jerry's going to have interest in this. They would have to believe, I think, that there is another level to CJ Abrams that the Nationals were not able to get out of him. And stranger things dumber bets have been made on that. I mean, again, Abrams is only 25 years old. So, I think it's interesting, but I don't know. I just can't get over the fact that Abrams doesn't really do anything all that well.
I just can't imagine.
Feels like you're paying for club control more than anything else.
Yeah, I just can't imagine, though, that with everything the Mariners have said this offseason, that they would put themselves in a position where now Cole Emerson has to make the team out of camp because you just traded Williamson and now Abrams isn't going to go to third. He's going to play second. So now you're also blocking Cole Young, which is something that they clearly don't want to do. So, like, I would still take the shot on CJ Abrams, but I don't think that this aligns with what the Mariners are trying to accomplish this offseason. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, again, you get Abrams for 3 years. Like, you get plenty of club control here. He's a 3-1 player last year. So despite not doing anything like particularly great, he's still a solid player. Like he has a bunch of, I would call them 45s. And then like he has raw power is probably a 55. And you look at like the speed is probably a 60. Like that's the one standout tool. But how valuable is that really? He's a 3-1 player. It really depends on how you value the defense. He's not great, but again, 106 WRC plus in 2024, 107 and 20. He's a good player. There's a chance that you get roughly the same value from Cole Young this year, even if it's not by hitting 20 homers and stealing 30 bags. Yeah. So I'm still interested in Abrams, and honestly, this cost that we have here, I think that's about what it should take. Like, but I don't think the Nationals would take that, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I look at Abrams and I say, like, look, this guy, it's kind of Randy Arozarena-like, just without the track record, which is not that great. But you get an extra year club control, and he's a middle infielder, which, I mean, he stands there, sure. Put Randy at shortstop, 130 times a year. He's a middle infielder too. So, yeah, Abrams is just a really interesting like case overall. He's also a lefty, so I know the Mariners have said like we don't care that much about righty lefty anymore. But I think ideally you'd want a righty. But yeah, would I trade Senja and take that shot on Abrams? Yes, I would. So with the Nationals, I think they'd probably be trying to get a little bit more than this.
Yeah, I mean, like, if this is your Brendan Donovan pivot, fine. It's just, again, I don't think it necessarily aligns with what the Mariners are trying to accomplish this offseason. I just don't think Abrams himself, especially in this deal where you're trading Williamson, because, again, now you're blocking Cole Young, and you're painting yourself into a corner where Cole Emerson has to make the club. Unless you do something else at third after this trade.
It's pretty interesting to me is I think Abrams would actually be a pretty good outfielder. Like,
didn't they try that? I can't remember.
No, they haven't done that yet. But he's obviously very fast. So he can't really handle a ground ball all that well. So it kind of makes sense. Like if you're going
the Padres tried it. That's right.
Okay. So if you're going to get Abrams, right, and he could be the second baseman this year, again, what do you do with Cole Young? I get that, but like you talk about, like, well, part of the thing with Donovan is that I can move him out to left field next year when Randy leaves. Well, you might be able to do that with Abrams. Like the Mariners might view that
Right.
very similar way, and if they think Donovan can play third, maybe they think Abrams can play third. So again, in general, I'm open to the Abrams idea. I don't think he's very Mariner-y, if that makes sense. And I'm not quite sure how to value him because I think the 3-win aspect and the fact that he's got 3 years left of club control is nice, but it's also the first time he's ever been a 2-win player. And again, he doesn't have really anything that he does incredibly well. And he's not a shortstop. I'm not paying shortstop prices for a guy who can't play shortstop, even though the Nationals will almost certainly ask for shortstop prices. So St. Joe, Williamson, Taylor, I don't know. That might be enough. That might not be enough. That might be an overpay. That might be an underpay. Abrams is just such a wild card in terms of what he can do, what he brings to the table. So
Yeah.
I think my gut is it costs a little bit more than this because of the third year.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say 40. I think you need like a co-headliner instead of a Williamson.
I'm just not willing to give up much more than this, though.
Yeah. It's kind of a weird player to talk about and a weird fit with a open-ended cost. So
I wouldn't, even with the extra year of club control that he has over Donovan, I would not match what I think the Mariners are probably offering for Donovan right now for Abrams.
I think with the extra year of club control, I think the Mariners might be willing to give the Donovan package for Abrams, but I think they very clearly would prefer Donovan even with less club control, if that makes sense. So I think, honestly, though, from like a Mariners perspective, what do I think the Mariners would be comfortable giving up for Abrams? I think it would be something very similar to this.
Yeah.
So from that aspect, I think you're in a good spot. From the Nationals aspect, feels like they're going to wait and they don't have to move him this winter. So it feels like they're going to wait and see if they can get more in the summer. So I guess you combine all that 45.
Again, I don't know if this necessarily aligns with what the Mariners are trying to do this offseason. I don't know if that also aligns with, what the Nationals want and all that. So yeah, 45-50. I mean, it created a really interesting discussion here. So I'll give you that. So I'll say 50. I'll give you the bump there because of the conversation that it started. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, if you want to hear from me and Colby even more and help support the show, we have a Patreon. It's called Control the Zone. And on there, we talk Mariners, Seahawks, all that good stuff. For more information, go to patreon.com/Control the Zone. Link in the description of this episode. It's Fanfiction Friday. Let's get back into your trades. Matthew has a deal here with the Twins. It's another 1-for-1, like the Ronnie Mauricio, Luke Raley trade earlier. This one, it's Corbin Dickerson for Cody Clemens. Clemens had a pretty good start to the year, and then I think he tailed off, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he finished with a 95 WRC plus. Hit 19 home runs, though. The pop is very real. Has the good average exit velos and barrel percentages and hard hit rates that the Mariners really like. Traditionally, good ex-WOBA as well. Also, pretty solid base runner and defender. Whiff and chase rates about league average. He Ks 24% of the time, which again below average, but not terrible. The walk rate is okay. It's not average. It's slightly below average. Just doesn't really get on base. The on base percentage is quite low. But
this might be crazy to say, but like, would you say he's like a super Miles Mastrobuoni?
I think way more power. Like I think if
well,
Miles,
that's what the super is.
Well, I mean, like I think Miles is more likely to get on base, but I think Clemens is obviously more likely to run into one. I feel like he's closer to, in terms of like impact off the bench, he's closer to Dylan Moore. Dylan had more, base running chops and a little more versatility. But yeah, I think, in general, I think that's probably the idea. And so, I mean, I'm intrigued by this idea. again, Clemens doesn't really get on base. I'm not asking him to play every day, right? I'm looking for a bench player who can do some things. And Clemens, good base runner, above average speed as well. He's got real pull power. He hits the ball very hard, on average. And yeah, again, he plays multiple spots. He plays some first base, he plays some right field, plays some second base. Has experience at third base as well. So again, I can have a guy who can play 4 or 5 positions. He gives me real power off the bench, and he hits the ball hard. There might be a little bit more here as you give him more at bats. So yeah, I'm intrigued by this. And if Corbin Dickerson, who I like, is the cost, I think I'd pay it. I think I'd take the shot because there's so many question marks with Dickerson right now, and he's so unpolished that I feel like this is the type of player that you should be able to get. It's 4 or 5 years of a utility guy who brings some power off the bench, brings some good speed off the bench, can play all the corner spots, which, again, kind of gives you a Colt Emerson buffer a little bit. He's also played some second base on top of that. So, and he's fine there. Like he's a fine defender. So I actually like this deal a good amount. I think it's creative. I think it, fills the need. I wish he could hit right-handed, like a little bit, maybe a switch hitter would be great. But again, you're talking about a guy with 20 home run pop, and he did that, by the way, in about half a season's worth of at-bats. So there's real power here. Again, he hits the ball hard. He plays multiple spots. I like this idea.
I do too. Yeah. Like you said, I think Corbin Dickerson is the right prospect to trade in a deal like this for a player like this. Clemens, he's not going to want to wow you, but that's a solid bench bat to have, Again, to me, it's kind of like a souped up version of the Miles Mastrobuoni idea, the Miles Mastrobuoni mold.
Right.
So, yeah, this is fine. This is fine. I would give this a, 55, 60.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at. And I like this more than the Mauricio idea, mostly because I don't have to give up Luke Raley. Right. Like
you're trading from a more important part of your roster for a less important part of your roster with the Mauricio deal. This is, I'm trading a prospect to upgrade my bench a little bit.
Right. And again, it gives you legitimate coverage at second base and third base, which right now, big question marks. Again, could they get Cody Clemens and still go trade for Donovan? Yes, they could.
Yeah.
They would still fit. So I like this quite a bit. So I'm going to give it a 55-60. I think this is also, it has the benefit of, being somebody we haven't talked about at all this winter, which is shocking that we found somebody. So I'm going to go 60. I like this.
All right. Lions has a deal here, and this comes from our Discord. Again, you can sign up for our Discord for free, the Hawaii Sailors Discord, and submit Fanfiction Friday and Mailbag Monday questions over there. As Lions did here. It's a Brennan Donovan trade, but it's Brennan Donovan, Lars Nootbaar, and JoJo Romero for Durangelo Sanger, Luke Raley, Las Montes, and Michael Morales. So a lot happening here, a lot of moving pieces, 7 in total.
Yeah, it's pretty complicated. It's 2 years of Donovan, 2 years of Nootbaar, 1 year of Romero. And the Mariners are giving up 3 years of Raley. 6 years, 7 years of Sanger, Laz, and Morales, right? So
you're never beating the allegations.
Whatever, I don't care. They're stupid. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't know how the Cardinals are valuing Nootbaar. My hunch is they're valuing him way too high because I look at how they're valuing Donovan, and so when you just kind of break it down, right? Try and break it down piece by piece. For Donovan, you're paying, I don't know, Sanger and Morales, I guess.
It might be Sanger and Montes.
Right, but then you don't have, I guess you would almost then at that point, it would have to be Raley for Nootbaar.
Yeah.
And I guess the winner there, the Cardinals get 1 extra year of club control,
and they get a guy that doesn't have foot issues or whatever the thing is that's been going on with Nootbaar. Yeah.
Right. So I don't, and then Romero for Morales, that it falls apart right there.
Yeah.
So like, even if you want to say it's Senja and Laz for Donovan, which I don't think the Mariners would do. Nootbaar for Rayleigh. I don't think the Cardinals do that. And I definitely don't think the Mariners or the Cardinals would do Romero for Morales. So it kind of feels like either A, we need to ditch Nootbaar out of this deal, or B, the Mariners need to add another piece, and it's not going to be one of their better prospects because they're already giving up Senja and Laz. So
well, but going back to what you were saying though about like you don't think the Mariners would do Senja and Laz for Donovan, but would they do Senja and Laz if it also helps them get Nootbaar and Romero?
Maybe.
You know what I mean? So like if it makes up the difference of like, the Morales and the Rayleigh aspect of it.
If the Cardinals want to look at this as it's Donovan and Nootbaar for Senja and Laz, like one guy for one top 100 prospect each, then do I think Jojo Romero for Morales and Rayleigh gets it done? Maybe, but like I just don't see what value Rayleigh has to the Cardinals. Really, they're not going to be good for the next 2 or 3 years. And so
they get a guy who they can play,
I don't
most
think
of the time and
I
maybe
think,
flip them.
Do better than Morales. At the end of the day, I think you have to do better than Morales to get this done. Maybe that's a comp round B pick. I still think Ben Williamson is actually a really interesting fit for the Cardinals. But yeah, I don't know. I think you're just a little bit off. And I'm not quite sure where you're off at though. But like I look at this deal and I say, I don't think the Mariners do that. I don't think the Cardinals do that, but I'm not quite sure why, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. It's complicated, but I don't know. When I think about it, it actually kind of works in my head. I'd probably still do like a 55 on this, honestly. I don't think it would happen.
You're a big Nootbaar guy.
The realism scale. I mean, I do like Nootbaar more than you do. I would get why the Mariners would want to take a shot on Nootbaar instead of Rayleigh. I can rationalize that in my head. You can't.
No. Rayleigh hits at T-Mobile Park. You know he does, and he's also got an extra year of club control, and he's very cheap. I just think that the Mariners probably value Rayleigh more than they would Nootbaar. But
sure,
maybe. I mean, we talk about, well, Nootbaar's got the foot thing. It's like, well, Luke Rayleigh couldn't get out of bed last year without, tweaking his back or his oblique or whatever. And
can he even see spin? Like,
so it's kind of one of those things where it's like, So it's an interesting trade. I'll give it a 50. It's a Donovan trade, which normally would drag you down quite a bit because we've seen all of them, but it's got a twist because it's got Nootbaar and Romero on it. Yeah. So it's unique enough to give us some like new talking points. So yeah, I'll go 50. I think it's solid. It's just it feels off to me, and I'm not quite sure why.
I really feel like if the Mariners actually trade for Brendan Donovan, Jojo Romero is going to be involved. I don't think Nootbaar is going to be involved, but I think Romero is going to be involved in that deal.
Yeah, I just don't think I don't think Romero's very good. Like he's fine. Like I'm not opposed to it.
Well, and he would be your sixth best reliever. Like
whatever. I'd hope that's how they'd use him, but yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got Ferrer, you got Spire. Like in terms of just the lefties, like those two guys are definitely would be ahead of him.
I feel like the Mariners would really prefer a right-handed pitcher and one that has control. Romero's a rental, and you have two lefties already. So
again, man, Juan Mejia, Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think going out and trying to find that Gregory Santos trade is something the Mariners can be doing right now while they wait for Chaim Bloom to make up his freaking mind.
For real, man. Just like do it. Just trade him, or just say that like, hey, we're not going to trade him. Which would be stupid, but like, just give us an answer.
At least we have some closure, and we can all move on.
Yeah, seriously. Our final trade of the day comes here from Adam. Mariners get Jake Cronenworth. Padres get Michael Arroyo and Brock Moore.
You guys probably know I'm a big Cronenworth guy. So
never heard you talk about him before.
Yeah. Very famously, I've never mentioned Jake Cronenworth.
Yep.
I don't think he costs this much because of the contract.
Yeah, it's possible.
Which
Yeah.
isn't even bad. But I continue to say this: the contract is not bad. It is not a bad contract. Cronenworth is a 2.5, 3-win player who doesn't really have splits, who can play multiple positions around the infield. He's just a good quality player. He doesn't chase. He takes a lot of walks. He just has a bunch of average tools, and paying that guy $11 million a year is not bad. It's not. It's well within market price.
If it costs this, would that be a problem?
I don't think it'd be a problem per se.
Yeah.
But I don't think it has to cost this unless
the
Padres are eating a good chunk of the contract. So like obviously they've tried or they've been interested in trading Cronenworth for the last 2 years now. And we haven't even heard really much of a rumor other than like, hey, the Padres are open to trading Jake Cronenworth. They're going to have to eat money to get anything of value here. And so to me, Cronenworth is a perfectly viable, Donovan pivot, so to speak, because he can play multiple spots, because he doesn't have splits. Donovan does. Cronenworth really doesn't. So I look at this and I say, look, I really like Cronenworth. I don't think he costs this unless the Padres are eating. I know the Padres are going to make Cronenworth a $6 million player for the duration of this contract. Then yeah, Michael Arroyo is a really nice prospect. Cronenworth is a 2.5, 3-win player that checks a lot of boxes for you and is a phenomenal fit on this roster. So actually, based on how it was presented to us without any money changing hands, I think this is going to end up being an overpay for the Mariners. So I have to dock it like down to like a 40. But if the Padres were going to eat some, serious amounts of cash here, then I think it's within range. And honestly, you might even be able to get a little bit more out of the Padres if you're going to start throwing around Arroyo. Like, could you get Cronenworth and Laureano, Cronenworth and Estrada? If you're going to put, Arroyo on the table, could you get a reliever? Could you get, an outfielder or something along with Cronenworth? Now they eat less money if they're giving you something else of value, but I do think that there's like a path here where you can work out a deal with the Padres that includes Cronenworth and another piece if you're willing to actually throw around guys like Arroyo and Laz and maybe that comp round pick. The Padres are trying to shed some money. I don't know how willing they would be to eat more money. But again, it's like, do you want to pay Cronenworth $12 million a year, or do you want to pay Cronenworth $8 million a year? Like, you're still saving money by including money in the trade. So yeah, I mean, if short of that, if there is no trade, you might be able to get Cronenworth for Teddy McGraw. Like, if there is no money changing hands, or heck, maybe even Josh Caron, like probably a combo, some bulk. But yeah, I don't think he costs a top 100 guy just because the contract is what it is. And again, it's the length more so than it is the AAV. Sure. But I think you're actually overpaying here unless there's another piece involved or the Padres are giving you some money too. So because of that, I'll say 40, 45, but I'll go 45 simply because you brought up Jake Cronenworth and you didn't go like you for some reason. So 45 minimum.
Honestly, though, I would trade Michael Arroyo for Jake Cronenworth.
Interesting.
Even with the contract situation, because like you said, like, all right, he doesn't play a corner outfield spot. He doesn't play third, which like Brendan Donovan doesn't really either. Good. But like, I like him just like if we are putting these two guys just in a vacuum, right? Regardless of the contracts and the money and all that stuff. I'd rather have Jake Cronenworth than Brendan Donovan, frankly. That might be blasphemous to some, but look at the numbers. And like you said, Cronenworth is a better hitter against lefties than Donovan is. Way better. Like, wasn't Donovan was like a 75 WRC plus against lefties this year, right? Or in 2025.
Yeah, but he was a 140 against righties, so.
Yeah, but Cronenworth was like a 115 against lefties, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
So he was like 40% better than Brendan Donovan.
A little bit older.
Against lefties. Now, obviously, he was also worse against righties. He was about 25-ish% worse against righties than Donovan was. But honestly, I think I would rather have Jake Cronenworth. I think he's just a more balanced player, more balanced hitter than Brendan Donovan is. So anyway, as for the trade itself, again, I would actually trade Michael Arroyo for Jake Cronenworth. I don't think you have to though, like you said. So I don't know. I'll still give you like a 50, honestly.
I can't tell if I've become the anti-Cronenworth guy on this podcast, or if I just am significantly higher on Arroyo than you are.
Sure.
So I guess we'll find out in a couple of weeks, because as we know, once we go back to daily, we got to do stuff like prospect ranks, which I know you guys love.
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, we do have.
I know. I really like Arroyo a lot. I do.
Yeah. I think
I also really like Jake Cronenworth a lot. So
I mean, I do too, but like, I don't like, again, would I be upset if they traded Arroyo for Cronenworth? No.
Yeah.
But I don't think you have to. So
No.
yeah, that's why I think Cronenworth, again, I tweeted this a while ago, and Cardinal fans found it and got really upset. They thought I was saying that Cronenworth was a better player than Donovan, which I wasn't, but also that's not necessarily a ridiculous thing to say. But anyways, the whole point is that, like, hey, look, if I can get Cronenworth for Teddy McGraw, or it costs me Arroyo and St. Joe, or Arroyo and a comp round beat, whatever, to get Donovan, I might just rather have Jake Cronenworth, because I don't think it's that big of a drop off, and I think the difference in price is going to shock people.
Well, that's ultimately my point, right? Like, if we're going to throw around Arroyo's name with Donovan, like, if we're just, again, talking about these guys in a vacuum, regardless of their contract, like, I would throw around Arroyo's name for Cronenworth.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So that's all I'm trying to say is, like, I would trade Michael Arroyo for Jake Cronenworth. I don't think you have to, though. So, now I don't know if you would necessarily get him for just like Josh Caron or Teddy McGraw. You might have to give up a little something better than that. Maybe it's like Dickerson. Maybe it's like Dickerson and, like a Ryan Hawks type.
Yeah.
But,
maybe.
But yeah. I'll give you a 50. That is going to do it for our show. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Once again, if you never miss an episode, it's time to make it official. Join the Locked On Everydayer Club and get ad-free audio, access to our members-only Discord, and more, all built for our most loyal fans. For Colby Patnode, I'm Titan Gonzalez. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Titan Gonzalez and Colby at CPAT11. That's CPAT11. We're also on Blue Sky. You can follow me at TDG, Colby at MLB Colby, and the show at Locked On Mariners. You can also find us on Instagram at Locked On Mariners. Have yourself a beautiful baseball day, and we'll see you next time. Peace. Go Hawks.